Hey there, Jim Hart back at you here from the Hart Law Firm, and today I want to do part 2 of a video that I started last week that talks about the various ways, the various things that you need to do to get your business started legally. And it was a great video, but it was just way too long. It was like 30 minutes long, and I thought, well, I'll break it into 2 videos and then I'll make it easier. So I'm gonna try and get this video in quick before they start hammering downstairs, because that's what they're doing all day, every day. Anyway, let's do this. Let's hop into today's video. What's next on the list of listies? It is make sure you have your business license. So if you're just getting started in business for the first time, chances are you may not need a business license, but if you're in a profession like a doctor, lawyer, accountant, financial advisor, realtor, someone like that who deals with people, then you probably need some sort of license. You probably already know that if you're in that profession. Like for me as a lawyer, I need a law license and I have to register that with my state bar and then the Secretary of State. It's a whole thing. For other people, it could also be like if you're a hairdresser or a barber, or you do nails, or you do massages, or I don't know, any type of personal care services, you probably need to have a license, and that you're going to get through your state typically. If you are, let me think of some other examples. Sometimes people that are in the trades, plumbers, painters, roofers, anyone like that that's doing something, work on your house, or where they need to be following codes and different things like that, probably need some sort of license. And so you need to make sure whatever it is you're doing, if you're doing an online business, chances are you probably don't need a license, but it's possible where you live you might need a license and to register the fact that you're working from home. That is possible. So I would check with your city, county, or state to see what license might be required where you live. And that's definitely something you don't want to mess up, because they can fine you or put you out of business or all sorts of crazy things. The next thing is you need to register for sales tax. And this is regardless if you've got an LLC or a sole proprietor, or you're a corporation or a partnership or whatever. If you're selling some sort of product or service, then it's possible you may need to collect sales tax, and you definitely want to make sure you follow those rules, because if you fail to collect those taxes, the state and the Department of Revenue can come down hard on you. I will let you know, if you're selling digital products, some states do tax digital products, other states do not, and I actually will include a link down below to a list of all the states and who's collecting what taxes, so you can check that out. There's a free download that you can get access to if you think that you might need to collect sales tax. All right, so what have we done so far? We've set up a virtual address, we've picked a name, we've done some business planning, we've set up our LLC and or filed our trademarks, and we have an EIN number, and we've got our business license. What could we need next? Oh yes, we need something very important. We need a way to collect money, and that would be usually done through a bank account. So you need to set up a business bank account. You're gonna go to your local bank, someplace that hopefully you have a relationship with your banker. So you're gonna run in, you're gonna take your EIN number, you're gonna take your articles of organization, you might have a banking charter. I typically give those to my clients that set up an LLC through me. I give them a charter that they can use that basically says that, on behalf of the LLC, we're authorized to set up this bank account. You might need an operating agreement to do this with the bank. Sometimes the bank will have their own paperwork, but it just depends. So I would go to a bank where you have a relationship with the banker and you trust them, and make sure they have an easy interface to do business banking. And the reason I say that, I would typically steer away from like the local banks, and it's not so much that I don't like the local banks. The local banks are fine, but what you'll find is you're gonna need to connect that bank to other systems, perhaps like your bookkeeping system, or you might need if you hire a bookkeeper, they might need to connect it to certain systems. If you need to make payments, it might need to be connected that way. And a lot of banks participate in kind of an exchange. There's a program called Plaid out there that helps connect banks seamlessly to other software, so that you can pull that information into the other software and manipulate it and use it for your benefit, for reports and financial tracking and things of that sort. And a lot of the smaller banks just don't have access to that. It can be very tricky, and typically what would normally be instantaneous with a larger, more well-respected bank is going to take several days to set up with a smaller bank. And I've had issues. I use it's not even a local bank. They're in multiple states, but I use First National Bank for my business banking right now. I've been using them for years. I love them. That's probably the only reason I don't change, because I have a good relationship and they help me out whenever I have an issue. But sometimes it's tricky to get them set up, and sometimes the QuickBooks sync kind of stops working and won't work for a few days. So there can be issues there. So I would recommend, if you don't have a relationship with a bank, this is a really long way to say, find a bank that you can trust and that doesn't have too many fees associated with your business bank account, because you're going to be giving them a lot of money to work with, more than would normally be in a personal bank account typically, and you want to make sure that they're not charging you a lot of fees to do that. So check for free checking. Another bank that's online that you can use, and I'll include a link down below, is called Relay, and they will let you set up multiple bank accounts. It's all done online. It's perfect for online business, and so I'll include a link down below to them, of course. And I will say, if you're a sole proprietor, there is no legal distinction between your personal assets and your business assets as a sole proprietor. That's one of the issues and why people do set up LLCs. However, it's still important to have that separate EIN number that I already talked about and set up a separate bank account for your business. And the reason you want to do that is, as for tax purposes, really, is to make sure you're not commingling assets, because that's like the worst thing you could possibly do is commingle assets. That's just not, you just don't want to do that. Yeah, it's not good for anybody. And it's going to give you literally like a heart attack when it comes time to do taxes. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is so complicated. You're going to have to pull out all your business transactions, all your personal transactions, and it's going to be a big, huge mess, and you don't want to deal with that. I do recommend that you follow the Profit First system. I did a video on that, right? This side, I think. Right here, I'll include a link to the video that I did on Profit First and how I use Profit First for my business. And typically that's going to involve getting 4 bank accounts. If you walk into a bank, a local bank with a banker, they're going to look at you cross-eyed like you're some sort of crazy person trying to open up 4 bank accounts, but that's the way the system works. I'm not going to go into it here on this video. I did another video about that, and you can check that out. And we already talked about Relay, so that's cool. All right, what's next? Once you've got your bank account set up, you need to really get a bookkeeping system. Some people just use Excel, which might be fine. I think once things get a little bit more complicated and you start having a lot of sales, and you have a lot of expenses, Excel is probably, or Google Sheets is not going to be a great option for your business. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend a service like either QuickBooks Online, which is what I use and love, although it can be somewhat complicated, especially if you're just getting started and you have no background in accounting. You're going to be like, what the F is this? I don't understand. Or you can use a program called Xero, which I've tried, not a big fan of, but it does the job, and I know a lot of people that really do like it. The reason I think I don't like it, though, is because I have so many years under my belt with QuickBooks Online. I'm used to the way they do it. When you go into a new system, it's like, what is this system? This makes no sense. So I don't like it. Alternatively, and this might be the best option, especially if you have zero accounting or financial background knowledge and you never took those classes in college, and math numbers make you like woozy in the head, then I would probably hire a bookkeeper to help you to make sure that you don't mess any of this stuff up. And you can find a bookkeeper fairly inexpensively, especially when you're just getting started, because you're not going to have that many transactions, and it's going to be pretty easy to set up your books. It's also going to be easier to set them up from the very beginning than it will be to set them up a year from now or 2 years from now when you've got a lot of transactions and they have to go back through months and months of statements and, whatever. All right, insurance. Insurance for home-based online businesses, typically what you're doing with insurance is a lot of times you're going to need some sort of liability policy. If you're a profession that you're going to need malpractice insurance, that's a different issue. You probably know you need to have malpractice insurance. As a lawyer, I have malpractice insurance, and then I also have a general liability policy, I think, that just kind of covers everything, generally speaking. It's a good idea to get that in place for your business. I would typically recommend talking to a local business insurance person in your area. You can go to BNI Group, and there's going to be somebody there that just look and see, and I'm sure they will have a business insurance person there. They almost always do. And if they don't, you can ask for some recommendations. Maybe they will be able to point you in the right direction. Or ask some of your entrepreneurial-minded friends if they know of anybody that you can use to help you set up your business insurance. And I typically recommend going with someone local. Now, there are some brands that you can go with online that will help you, but honestly, I like the personal service. If I ever have a claim, I call up the person that I know and I trust, and they handle everything for me. It's much easier, but you can do whatever you want. But I would recommend, even if you decide ultimately you don't need business insurance, there's probably something you need insurance for, whether it be cyber insurance, or when you start to hire employers, you're going to need, or employers. When you start to hire employees, you're going to need maybe workers' comp insurance, things like that. So you definitely want to make sure you have at least talked to somebody and you know what you do and don't need, and then you can make a decision. Typically, a general liability policy of like $1 million is going to run you a couple $100 a year. Not a huge expense, but if something goes wrong, something you definitely want to have in place. Okay, so the next major thing that you need to make sure you've done for your business is you need to make sure you have some contracts in place. Now, I'm going to assume that you are setting up a website. And if you're setting up a website and you're collecting customer information on your website, which is why most people set up websites, you're going to need to have a privacy policy. It's required by law in all 50 states. You need to have that in place. And so at a minimum, you need that privacy policy. You're also going to need a website terms of service. Both of these things are documents that when you go to set up like a WordPress site, or maybe you're on Squarespace or Wix or something like that, a lot of times they will try and give you a templated version of it. Those typically aren't great. I would recommend, purchasing a template online. Wink, wink. I've got a template down below in the description that you can access, and you can get it through my template store called One Stop Legal. We've got all sorts of legal templates that you might be able to use for your business. Some of the other contracts you might need are, you may need a client contract if you're working with individual clients. You might need a terms of sale that you would use if you're selling digital products online. Maybe a refund policy, different things like that. So you're going to need some contracts in place for your business. That's just something that you're going to need to do. And typically, I don't know what type of business you're running, so I don't know what type of contracts you might need, but you may need a bunch. And that's typically the case. And it's good to get those in place now, before you actually start selling things and before you start going public. So you have them and you can just plug them right into your website. When you're ready to sell products, you can just plug them right in there too. If you want to hire a lawyer to do a client contract, that's typically one of the first type of major contracts you would hire a lawyer for. It's typically going to cost you in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. And I would recommend, when you're just getting started, you probably could use a client contract template. I think that's probably going to be sufficient for what you're doing. But as you start to grow, then that's probably going to be one of the first major investments you're going to make in legal as you move on. And I should just mention, just something about legal that you should be aware of is when you're running a business, having a lawyer on your side is something that you're going to want to do because, issues are going to come up, and you're going to need to have somebody there that you can bounce questions off of, that you can talk to when something comes up and you're not sure how to deal with it. You're going to want to have somebody that maybe is just there to update your contracts or help you point out issues that you might have in your business. And so that's something to think about. Legal is something that it's always going to be with you. It's always an expense that you're going to have in your business, or mind you, I would call it an investment that you're going to have in your business. And so just be aware of that. Let's see, what else do we have? So yeah, what I would recommend you do is I would bookmark this video, or save it to your saved list, and make sure you come back to this to reference, because I've talked about a lot of topics here today that are going to help you to build and grow your business legally. And you may need to come back and refer to some of these areas again from time to time, and I would recommend you do that. I've included some links down below to different time codes in the video so you can see where certain things are talked about. And here's another video I've done that is going to talk about how to pick the right name for your business. That's something that's one of the most important first things you're going to need to do. So check that out, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.